On that unforgettable morning in an old barn nestled on the outskirts of a quaint village in the Cotswolds, something extraordinary unfolded. Something that would forever alter the lives of everyone involved. It was a day that began like any other, with the usual comfort of routine, but would soon spiral into an intense and unexpected encounter. A story as tangled and rich as the ivy climbing the ancient oak beams overhead. Eleanor Bennet was left alone in their modest cottage in the sleepy town of Chipping Norton. Her husband Richard had departed days earlier for a health retreat on the shores of Cornwall, seeking relief from the relentless pressures of his warehouse job and the ceaseless hum of London traffic. "I'll come back refreshed, Eleanor, ready to take on the world again," he had said, planting a kiss on her cheek before leaving. Eleanor, however, felt the familiar ache of solitude settle in. Their home was cozy but worn, walls yellowed with age, curtains faded from the sun, and the creaking floorboards telling tales of decades past. With Richard gone, Eleanor planned to spend the days reading old classics like Jane Eyre, baking scones for the neighbors and enjoying the slow, gentle rhythms of country life. But then her daughter Sophie called, a voice trembling with panic. "Mum, I need your help," Sophie sobbed. "We've just moved into the new place in Oxfordshire, and the barn on the property is a disaster. There's stuff piled everywhere, boxes, old furniture, tools, and without you I don't know how we're going to make sense of it. I'm losing my mind." Eleanor's heart melted instantly. Sophie had always been sensitive, even as a child, and this helplessness in her voice stirred a maternal resolve deep within. Without hesitation, Eleanor donned her worn denim jeans and a faded flannel shirt, her barn clothes, and climbed into her trusty, slightly battered Ford Fiesta, a relic Richard had lovingly maintained for years. The drive was familiar and soothing, the rolling hills bathed in morning mist, the scent of pine and freshly cut hay reminding Eleanor of childhood summers at her grandparents' farm. Sophie's husband, Marcus, was a striking figure, tall, athletic, with broad shoulders that strained against his fitted work shirt, and hands that bore the marks of years spent as a mechanic at a local factory. Eleanor remembered the first time Sophie introduced him at a family dinner. Solid as a rock, she had thought, a man who can fix anything from a car engine to a dripping tap, and he's got a wicked sense of humor to boot. Yet beneath her pride in her daughter's choice, a flicker of something else lingered. A pang of envy perhaps, or nostalgia for the days when Eleanor herself had dreamed of adventure and passion, not just quiet evenings and routine. Arriving just as the dawn painted the sky in soft pinks and golds, Eleanor stepped out into the crisp air. The dew still clung to the grass, sparkling like tiny diamonds. Birds chirped overhead, and the scent of damp earth and blooming wildflowers filled her lungs. The barn loomed ahead, a ramshackle structure with peeling paint and a sagging roof, a monument to years of neglect. Marcus greeted her at the gate, his sleeves rolled up to reveal powerful forearms dusted with sawdust. His dark, subtly curling hair was still damp from a morning shower, and a faint aroma of coffee lingered about him. "Thanks for coming, Eleanor," he said, his deep voice warm and steady. "Sophie had to dash off early for work, and I'm no match for this chaos on my own." Eleanor smiled, feeling the familiar comfort of family despite the mess. "No worries. Family's family. Let's start with the barn, shall we? If we clear this out, the rest will be a breeze." The barn door groaned open, revealing a cavernous space filled to the brim with decades of accumulation. Battered crates stacked to the rafters, rusty tools, weathered garden furniture, old bicycles, and boxes bursting with forgotten treasures. Dust motes floated lazily in the shafts of morning light that filtered through gaps in the walls. The air smelled of oil, mildew, and the faint nostalgic tang of linseed wood. Eleanor rolled up her sleeves and dug in, sorting through the clutter with a practiced eye. Marcus worked beside her, his movements efficient and precise, muscles flexing under the fabric of his shirt as he lifted heavy boxes and shifted furniture. Occasionally their hands brushed, sending unexpected sparks up Eleanor's arm, a sensation she hadn't felt in years. As the sun climbed higher, Eleanor climbed a rickety ladder to reach a box perched on a high shelf, the wooden steps creaking ominously. Her shirt rode up, revealing a flash of creamy skin along her lower back, chilled by the sudden draft. She sensed Marcus's gaze lingering, and when she turned their eyes met, his gray eyes sparkling with something unreadable. He smiled faintly, a slow, knowing curve of his lips. "Careful up there, Eleanor," he said softly, stepping closer, his shoulder nearly brushing hers. "Let me get that for you before you fall and break something." His presence was like a warm fire on a chilly morning, and Eleanor felt a flutter in her chest. She shook her head, laughing nervously. "I'm fine, thank you. Just watch your step yourself." They returned to sorting, but the atmosphere had subtly shifted. Every glance, every accidental touch, seemed charged with a quiet electricity. Eleanor caught herself stealing looks at Marcus's strong hands, the way his brow furrowed in concentration, the playful gleam in his eyes when he teased her about holding up the work later. They retreated to the farmhouse kitchen, where the scent of freshly baked scones and brewing tea welcomed them. Marcus brewed a strong cup, adding a sprig of mint from the windowsill garden. They sat by the window, sunlight warming their faces, and talked easily about Marcus's latest project at the factory, Eleanor's grandchildren, and memories of simpler times. Then, with a sudden seriousness, Marcus's gaze met Eleanor's. "You know, Eleanor," he said quietly, "I always thought you were something special. Not like the other mothers-in-law who just complain and nag. You have fire in you, something alive and fierce." Eleanor laughed, cheeks flushing. "Fire? Me? I'm just an old woman trying to keep things together, didn't know?" He insisted, leaning in closer. "There's a spark in you that's been hidden for too long. I saw it the first time Sophie brought you over. How you laughed and joked like a young woman, not some tired old matron." The barn and its dusty confines seemed to fade away as the afternoon light softened. They returned to work, but every look, every brush of hands was laden with unspoken tension. A dance on the edge of something forbidden, and then, in a moment that felt suspended in time, Eleanor and Marcus found themselves alone amid the clutter, the air thick with anticipation. Their eyes locked and the world fell away. A kiss, a brief electric kiss, changed everything. As Eleanor pulled back, breathless and trembling, Marcus whispered, "This changes everything, Eleanor." Outside, the sky darkened with the promise of a brewing storm. What would become of this fragile, dangerous spark between them? Would it burn away the old life? Or ignite something new? The secret hung heavy in the air, waiting to be unraveled. The waning light of the late afternoon slipped through the dusty cracks of the barn, casting long shadows across the mismatched piles of forgotten relics. Eleanor stood frozen for a heartbeat after that charged kiss, the warmth of Marcus's breath still lingering on her lips. The scent of sawdust, oil, and the faintest hint of his cologne thrummed around her, mingling with the thrill and the guilt that tumbled wildly in her chest. Marcus straightened, running a hand through his damp hair, the muscles in his forearm flexing with a subtle tension. "Eleanor," he said softly, voice low and thick with uncertainty, "I don't want to hurt anyone. Especially Sophie." She swallowed hard, steadying herself against a rickety wooden crate. She was acutely aware of the roughness of the barn floor beneath her scuffed boots, the scratch of denim against her skin, the slight chill from the evening breeze sneaking through the gaps in the walls. Her faded flannel shirt was damp with sweat from the day's work, the collar loose and revealing the delicate curve of her neck. A stray lock of her chestnut hair had escaped her makeshift bun, brushing against her cheek. "Did I know?" she whispered, eyes locked on his. "Neither of us wanted this. But it's real. We can't pretend it's not." Marcus stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "What do we do now?" The barn, once a chaotic jumble of forgotten things, now felt like a confessional, a place where the past and present collided, where secrets were buried and desires unearthed. Eleanor's heartbeat thundered in her ears, loud enough to drown out the creak of the old beams overhead. She reached out, her fingers brushing against his hand, warm and callous from years of hard labor. "I don't know," she admitted, voice trembling. "But I do know one thing: this isn't just a moment. It's a turning point." Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the barn door like a warning. The sky deepened from soft rose to a bruised purple, the first distant rumbles of thunder vibrating through the earth. Eleanor shivered, part from the cold, part from the storm brewing inside her. Marcus's eyes darkened, shadowed by the gathering dusk. "We should finish up here," he said, voice steady, pushing down the swell of emotions. "Sophie's going to be back soon, and she needs this place sorted." Eleanor nodded, reaching for a battered toolbox, her fingers trembling as they closed around the worn handle. They moved through the barn in a quiet rhythm, the tension between them simmering just beneath the surface. Every accidental touch, every glance exchanged, was electric. As they worked side by side, Eleanor's thoughts drifted. How had life brought them here, to this precarious edge? Marcus, Sophie's husband, a man she trusted and yet now found herself drawn to in ways she never imagined, was no longer just family. He was a forbidden possibility. By the time twilight settled fully, they had cleared half the barn. Boxes were stacked neatly, tools hung in order, and the air no longer smelled of neglect but of fresh beginnings. Eleanor wiped her brow with the back of her hand, smudging the dirt across her flushed cheeks. Her eyes met Marcus's again, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. "We make a good team," she laughed softly, trying to lighten the mood. "Maybe we should do this more often." Marcus grinned, a mischievous glint in his eye. "As long as it's not all work and no play." Their shared laughter echoed softly in the barn, a fragile bubble of joy in the gathering darkness. Later, as Eleanor prepared to leave, Marcus walked her to her car. The evening air was cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and impending rain. She turned to him, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. "Thank you," she said simply. "For today." "For everything." Marcus smiled, his hand brushing a stray hair from her face. "Don't thank me yet," he said quietly. "We haven't even begun to untangle this mess." Eleanor's heart pounded as she slid behind the wheel, the engine coughing to life. As she pulled away from the farm, the first drops of rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavier, drumming against the windshield like the urgent beat of a warning. The road stretched out before her, dark and twisting, much like the path her life had suddenly taken, and somewhere in the shadows of the night, a secret waited to be revealed, a secret that could shatter families and redefine love. Would Eleanor dare to follow it? Or would she retreat to the safety of the familiar, carrying the storm within her alone? The rain hammered down in thick sheets as Eleanor's Ford Fiesta wound its way through the twisting lanes of the Oxfordshire countryside. The windshield wipers struggled to keep pace, smearing shadows into ghostly smudges that flickered like restless spirits in the storm. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the slick road ahead, but Eleanor's thoughts were a tempest far fiercer than the one raging outside. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles pale beneath the worn leather. The barn, their stolen moment, the raw electric kiss. It all felt surreal now, like a dream slipping through her fingers. Yet the ache in her chest was as real as the rain pelting the roof of her car. She pulled into the driveway of her cottage just as the storm reached its crescendo. Thunder roared overhead, shaking the windows, while lightning cast jagged shadows through the lace curtains. Eleanor's reflection in the rearview mirror caught her eye. Flushed cheeks, damp hair clinging to her face, eyes wide and haunted inside. The house was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of lamplight. Richard's absence was a palpable void, a silence that seemed to press in around her. She hung her soaked coat on the rack and moved to the kitchen, where the kettle's whistle pierced the stillness. The ritual of making tea, simple, grounding, offered a brief respite from the storm inside and out. As she poured the steaming water over the leaves, Eleanor's mind raced. How could she possibly face Sophie? The thought of her daughter returning to a tidy home, unaware of the chaos simmering beneath the surface, twisted her heart. And Richard, what would her husband say if he knew? The man she'd loved for decades, now miles away, blissfully ignorant of the secret that threatened to unravel their lives. A sudden knock at the door startled her. Heart pounding, Eleanor wiped her hands on a towel and opened it to find Sophie standing there, cheeks flushed from the rain, her blonde curls plastered to her forehead. "Mom, you're back. I didn't expect you so early," Sophie exclaimed, stepping inside and shaking raindrops from her coat. "Thank you so much for helping today. Marcus said you were amazing." Eleanor forced a smile, brushing damp strands from her own face. "We made a good team, didn't we? But I'm exhausted. I think I'll turn in early tonight." Sophie's eyes searched her mother's face, a flicker of something, concern? Suspicion? Passing through them. "Are you all right? You look different." "Just tired," Eleanor assured, her voice a shade too sharp. Long day. After Sophie left Eleanor to her thoughts, the house seemed colder somehow. She wrapped herself in a shawl and sank into the armchair by the fireplace, the flickering flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. The barn, Marcus's intense gaze, the forbidden kiss, they echoed in her mind like a song she couldn't forget. Her phone buzzed softly on the side table. A message from Marcus. * got home safe. Thinking about today. We need to talk. * Eleanor's fingers trembled as she typed back. * Yes. We do. * The night stretched on, heavy with unspoken words and impossible choices. Outside, the rain softened to a steady drizzle, washing the world clean, or perhaps preparing it for the storm yet to come. The following morning dawned bleak and gray, the village cloaked in mist. Eleanor busied herself with chores, but her mind was elsewhere, tangled in a web of guilt, desire, and fear. She knew the fragile balance of her world was at risk, and every step forward seemed to pull her deeper into a dangerous dance. Later that day, as she sorted through old photographs and keepsakes in the now tidied barn, a sudden movement caught her eye. Tucked beneath a pile of dusty boxes was an envelope, yellowed with age and sealed with a faded wax stamp. Curious, Eleanor broke the seal and unfolded the letter inside. The handwriting was elegant, unfamiliar, yet hauntingly familiar in its urgency. Asterisk to whoever finds this. Know that what lies within these walls holds secrets long buried. Some truths are safer left forgotten, but fate has other plans. Beware the shadows that watch and wait. Asterisk. A chill ran down Eleanor's spine. Was this a prank? An old message left by a previous owner? Or a warning? As she stood there, the barn door creaked open behind her. She spun around, heart pounding, but no one was there. Only the whisper of the wind and the soft patter of rain. The mystery had begun. What secrets did the barn hold? And who else might be watching, waiting for the right moment to emerge from the shadows? Eleanor knew one thing for certain. The quiet life she had known was over. The game had changed, and the stakes were higher than ever. Tomorrow, Sophie's birthday party was scheduled, a gathering of friends and family that promised laughter and celebration. But for Eleanor and Marcus, it loomed like a battleground where hidden truths might explode into the light. Would they have the courage to face what was coming? Or would the fragile web they'd woven unravel, destroying everything in its path? The storm outside was nothing compared to the tempest brewing within. The morning of Sophie's birthday dawned pale and overcast, the kind of day where the sun seems reluctant to rise, as if it too senses the tension hanging thick in the air. Eleanor stood by the kitchen window, cradling a steaming mug of tea, her reflection merging with the misty garden outside. The scent of freshly baked cakes mingled with the faint aroma of rain lingering from the night before, but inside Eleanor's heart, a storm raged far fiercer. She had spent the early hours preparing for the party, arranging flowers in mismatched vases, polishing silverware, and setting the table with Sophie's favorite china. The house was alive with the hum of anticipation, the walls echoing with memories of past celebrations. Yet beneath the veneer of normality, Eleanor felt a gnawing unease. The secret she shared with Marcus was a shadow lurking in every corner, threatening to unravel the fabric of their carefully constructed lives. As guests began to arrive, neighbors from the village, Sophie's friends from university, and family members Eleanor had not seen in months, the atmosphere grew lively, the chatter and laughter filling the rooms like warm sunlight. Sophie was radiant, dressed in a flowing pale blue dress that caught the light with every movement, her golden hair cascading in soft waves over her shoulders. Eleanor found herself watching her daughter with a mixture of pride and sorrow, aware that the day's joy masked deeper undercurrents. Marcus was the perfect host, charming, attentive, and effortlessly commanding attention. He moved through the crowd with ease, his broad shoulders filling his tailored shirt, the sleeves rolled up just enough to reveal the strong forearms Eleanor had come to know intimately. His eyes found Eleanor's across the room several times, each glance sending a ripple of heat through her, a secret spark amid the festive chaos. As the afternoon wore on, Eleanor slipped away to the garden, the cool air a balm against her flushed cheeks. The scent of damp earth and blooming roses surrounded her, the soft rustle of leaves whispering secrets. She leaned against the stone wall, closing her eyes for a moment, trying to steady the whirlwind inside. Having a quiet moment? Marcus's voice was low and warm behind her. She turned, startled but not displeased. He stepped closer, his presence grounding yet electrifying. "I thought I'd find you here," he said with a half-smile. Eleanor swallowed the lump in her throat, the memory of their stolen kiss in the barn fresh and vivid. "It feels like we're living on borrowed time," she confessed softly. Marcus nodded, reaching out to tuck a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "We have to be careful. Sophie trusts me, I don't want to betray that." She looked up into his gray eyes, so full of conflict and longing. "Neither do I. But how long can we keep pretending? How long before the truth tears everything apart?" Before he could answer, a sudden shout from the house shattered the fragile moment. They turned to see Sophie standing at the window, her face pale, eyes wide with shock. "Marcus! Mom! You need to come inside." Now they hurried back, the festive air replaced by a tense hush. In the living room, Sophie stood trembling, holding a crumpled envelope identical to the one Eleanor had found in the barn. The wax seal was broken, and the letter inside bore a chilling message: secrets buried in dust will claw their way to light. Beware the eyes that watch and the hands that reach. The past is not done with you yet. Eleanor's blood ran cold. The warning was no longer confined to faded paper. It was real, immediate. Marcus clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. Who sent this? Sophie shook her head, tears glistening. I don't know. But someone's watching us. Someone who knows. The room seemed to close in around them, the walls whispering of betrayals and hidden dangers. Eleanor's gaze met Marcus's, the unspoken truth burning between them. Their secret was no longer their OWS, the guests whispered anxiously. Eleanor felt the weight of the moment settle like a stone in her stomach. The past had caught up with them, and the tangled web of love, loyalty, and deceit was unraveling fast. Outside, the sky darkened once more, thunder rolling ominously on the horizon. What shadows lurked in the folds of their lives? And who would emerge from the darkness to claim the truth? The answers lay just beyond the fragile veil of the present, waiting to shatter the fragile peace and ignite a fire that could consume them all. The murmurs rippled through the gathered guests like a sudden chill wind, creeping beneath the festive decorations and dimming the warm glow of the afternoon. Eleanor's hands trembled slightly as she folded the ominous letter, her mind racing to piece together what threat could have found its way into their quiet village lives. The barn, the letter, the whispered warnings, they all tangled together in a knot that tightened painfully around her chest. Sophie's voice broke the uneasy silence. I don't understand. Who would want to scare us like this? We haven't done anything wrong. Marcus's gaze darkened, eyes flickering with a mixture of anger and worry. Sometimes it's not about what you've done, but what someone thinks you know, or what they want you to fear. Eleanor's pulse quickened. The barn, once a dusty relic of the past, now seemed like a stage for secrets far older and darker than she had imagined. She glanced toward the window, where the first drops of rain began to spatter against the glass, as if the storm outside sought to mirror the turmoil within it. I think we need to find out who's behind this, Marcus said decisively. This isn't random. Someone's watching us, waiting for the right moment. Sophie nodded, her usual vivacity replaced by a somber resolve. Maybe it's connected to the barn. Something hidden there that we missed? Eleanor swallowed, the memory of the old envelope's cryptic warning echoing in her ears. She had felt a strange energy in that place, a mixture of nostalgia and unease. Now it seemed the barn held more than just forgotten junk. It harbored whispers of a past someone desperately wanted to keep buried. Tomorrow, Eleanor said, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions, we'll search the barn thoroughly. Every corner, every crate. There might be something we overlooked. Marcus gave a firm nod. And I'll reach out to an old friend from the factory. A bloke who's good with digging up information. If someone's trying to scare us, we'll find out why. The three of them shared a determined glance, an unspoken pact forming in the space between them. Yet beneath their courage lurked an undercurrent of fear. Fear of what they might uncover, and what it could mean for their fragile family. As the evening drew in, Eleanor found herself alone in the dim light of the sitting room. The house, usually a sanctuary, now felt like a cage. She ran a hand through her tangled hair, the loose strands catching the soft lamplight, and stared at the faded photograph on the mantelpiece. A snapshot of simpler times, when laughter still filled these walls, and secrets were yet to poison their lives. Her phone buzzed quietly on the table. A message from Marcus. Be careful tomorrow. Whatever's out there, it's watching. A shiver ran down her spine. The night deepened, heavy with unspoken fears and restless dreams. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows and stirring the shadows that clung to the corners of the room. Eleanor lay awake, the weight of the day pressing down, the memory of Marcus's touch lingering like a flame barely contained. Somewhere in the darkness, a secret waited, patient, watchful, and dangerous, and Eleanor knew that when dawn broke, nothing would ever be the same again.